Ever wonder what real grassroots democracy looks like? I mean, not in some big government building, but down at the village level, where every single voter can actually look their leaders in the eye. Well, we're going to visit a small village to find out exactly what a Gram Sabha is and why it's such a big deal. So picture this. There's this energy in the air in Hardest Village. It's not a holiday, but it kind of feels like one. Everyone, and I mean everyone, is heading to the center of the village. Something really important is about to go down. It's the first big meeting since the new elections. Yep, they're all rushing to the Gram Sabha. So what's the big deal? What exactly is this thing? Why does this single meeting hold so much power? And, what can it teach us about how communities can really, truly govern themselves? Let's dive in. Okay, so to really get what a Gram Sabha is all about, we're going to be a fly on the wall at this meeting in Hardas. We're going to see how regular people, just like you and me, get to have a direct say in the decisions that shape their lives. They're holding their brand new leaders' feet to the fire from day one. All right, before we go any further, let's get a super clear definition. The Gram Sabha, it's not some fancy committee or a council, nope. It's literally a meeting of everyone. If you're 18 or older and you can vote in that village, congratulations, you are a member of the Gram Sabha. It's democracy at its purest. And that's really the key here. This isn't just about showing up and listening to some politician talk. No way. This is where the action is. Villagers come here to ask the hard questions, to debate the plans, and to get actual answers from the very people they just put in charge. It's accountability, live and in person. Okay, first step on the agenda is a huge one, something that affects every single person there. Hardas Village has a serious water problem. And we're not talking about an abstract issue on a spreadsheet. This is a daily, grinding struggle. And right away, the discussion gets real. A villager named Tidja stands up and she just lays it out there. She talks about how the hand pumps are basically useless now and how women have to walk 3 kilometers, that's almost 2 miles, just to haul back water. Her story just puts a very human face on this crisis. So, boom, 2 ideas hit the floor right away. On one side, you have the quick fix. Let's just deepen the hand pumps and clean out the wells. It's cheap, it's fast, it'll get them through the season. But then others argue for a real long-term solution. Run a pipeline from the river and build a big overhead tank. It's expensive, for sure, but it would be permanent. But then you get this amazing moment. Another person, Anwar, speaks up. He tells everyone about something he saw in a neighboring village. He suggests a third way, watershed development. Basically, it's about conserving water by planting trees and building these little check dams to let the groundwater recharge naturally. It's a sustainable idea. And nobody had even thought of it until he brought it up, right here in the Gram Sabha. All right, if you thought the water debate was intense, buckle up. The next topic is, well, it's a can of worms. It's time to approve the official list of families living below the poverty line, or BPL. Now, this list is a huge deal because it decides who gets government help. So as the names are read out, you can just feel the mood shift. People start whispering to each other. They know something's not right. They hear a name like Natwar, and they're thinking, wait a minute, didn't he just buy a color TV and a motorcycle for his kid? How in the world can he be on a list for the poorest people? And here's the thing. Here's why nobody's shouting about it. The guys getting on the list, they're buddies with Amir Chand, the old landowner who's still the most powerful guy in the village. People are scared. To question that list is to question Amir Chand himself. So you've got this glaring injustice, right? Well-off guys are on the list, but a man named Om Prakash, a guy with no land who everyone knows is barely getting by, his name is nowhere to be found. This is the exact kind of thing the Gram Sabha is supposed to stop. But the question is, will anyone have the guts to say something? And then someone does. A woman named Saroj stands up. In front of the entire village, in front of the powerful Amir Chand, she says it loud and clear. Om Prakash's name needs to be on that list. And just like that, her courage breaks the dam. Other people start nodding and agreeing. This right here is the Gram Sabha working exactly as it should. Okay, so we've seen some serious drama unfold. But who exactly are these people holding to account? Let's quickly break down the government structure they're all watching so closely. It's called the Gram Panchayat. So, the Gram Panchayat, think of it as the village's elected council. It's run by a president, who's called the Sarpanch, and a few other members from different parts of the village called Panch. They're the ones making plans and spending money, and they're elected for a 5-year term. And how they get elected is pretty simple, actually. First, the village gets carved up into smaller areas called wards. Each of those wards elects its own representative. That's the punch. Then, everybody in the whole village, the entire Gram Sabha, gets to vote for the big boss, the Sarpanch. And all those people together, that's your Gram Panchayat.
Okay, so let's zoom back out for a second. We've seen a heated debate about water and a brave fight for simple fairness. Both of these stories show us exactly why the Gram Sabha is so critical. It's the ultimate check on the power of the elected officials. So you see, its job is just so important. It's the place where plans have to be laid out for everyone to see and discuss. It's the watchdog that stops the panchayat from misusing money or, like we saw, playing favorites. It keeps a constant eye on its representatives and makes sure they remember who they're working for, the people who elected them. When you boil it all down, the Gram Sabha is so much more than just a meeting. It's the engine room of local democracy. It's where the whole idea of power to the people stops being a slogan and starts being a reality, shaping everything from water pipes to social justice. And that really leaves you with a big question, doesn't it? Just think about it for a second. What if your town, your city, your neighborhood had a system like this, where every single resident could directly question officials and vote on how your local money gets spent? How would things be different? What problems could you solve together? It's a pretty powerful thought.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a really fantastic story from a village called Hardas. It's all about a crisis that's becoming more and more common, running out of water, and how a system of local government can actually empower people to solve their own problems. All right, let's get into it.
So just picture this for a second. The water level in your town has dropped so low that you are facing a serious, acute shortage. Now, this isn't some far-off idea. This was the real, critical situation that the villagers of Hardas were dealing with. Their taps were literally running dry, and they needed a solution. And they needed it fast. So what do you do in a situation like that? Well, they get together. This is the Gram Sabha, which is basically a meeting of all the adults in the village. It's the very first step. A public place where problems can be brought out into the open, and everyone gets to have their say. It's right here that the water crisis officially gets put on the table.
Okay, but talking about a problem is one thing, actually doing something about it is a whole other story. And that's where this group comes in, the Gram Panchayat. You can think of them as the village's action committee or its executive council. They're elected by the villagers, and their whole job is to take the concerns people raise in that big public meeting and turn them into actual concrete plans for the village.
So after that big village-wide discussion, the Gram Panchayat holds its own official meeting. You've got the Sarpanch, who's the head of the council, the Panch, who each represent different parts of the village, and a secretary, who's there to write everything down and keep an official record. This is where the real nitty-gritty planning starts.
Now, this is where their strategy gets really smart. Instead of just looking for one single magic bullet solution, the members of the Panchayat in Hardas break the problem down. They come up with a plan that has two different tracks, what they can do right now and what they need to do to secure their future.
On one side, you've got the quick fixes. Let's deepen 2 hand pumps and clean out a well. That'll get water flowing again pretty quickly. But on the other side, they're thinking long-term about a more permanent, sustainable solution, a watershed management program. Now, that's a much bigger project, so they decide their first step is to get more info from a higher-level official. It's just a really practical, two-pronged attack on the problem.
And here's the detail that makes it all click into place. The Sarpanch confirms that they actually have money in the budget right now, specifically for maintaining hand pumps. So this isn't just some wish list. It's a real, actionable plan that already has funding. The members all agree, and the secretary writes it down, making it an official decision.
So you see how important that is? The whole process of formalizing the decision is crucial. A conversation in a meeting becomes an official resolution, recorded by the secretary. This is that moment where a village's concern gets transformed into a government-approved project. It's the engine of local democracy right there at work.
And what the Hardas Panchayat did is a perfect example of its main job. Taking care of common resources, like water sources, that's priority number 1. But they also handle everything from local taxes to implementing bigger government programs that bring jobs and money into the village.
So you might be wondering, how do they pay for all this stuff? Well, the money comes from a few different places. You've got local taxes and donations from the community, which are important, but look at that chart. The biggest piece of the pie, a full 60%, comes from those larger government schemes that are passed down to the village level to fund exactly these kinds of projects.
And that funding model really shows us something important. The village panchayat isn't just acting on its own. It's the foundation of a much bigger structure, something called the Panchayati Raj. It's a whole three-tier system designed to connect the smallest village directly to the district and the state government.
The whole system of self-government in rural areas, this Panchayati Raj, is built on three distinct levels. It's a three-tiered democratic government, and it all starts right there, at the grassroots.
So let's break that structure down real quick. At the bottom, you have the Gram Panchayat, the one we've been following in Hard S, at the village level. The next step up is the Janpad Panchayat, which you can think of as a council for a whole block of villages. And then at the top, you have the Zilla Parishad, which is responsible for development and planning across the entire district.
So remember all that government funding we just talked about? Well, it's the Zilla Parishad at the district level that's making the big development plans and helping figure out how that money gets distributed all the way down to every single Gram Panchayat, including, of course, the one in Hardas that needs to fix its hand pumps.
So when you step back and you look at this whole structure, from that first village meeting all the way up to the district council, you start to see that it's all designed around one single, really powerful idea. This right here is the heart of it. The entire system is designed so that the people who are closest to a problem are given the power and the platform to solve it themselves. It's all about making sure that the voices of villagers in places like Hardas aren't just heard, but are actually central to the whole process of development.
And when it works, wow, the results can be absolutely transformative. Remember that long-term plan for watershed management they were looking into? This is what's possible. With community participation and a system that supports it, a barren, useless landscape can be turned into a life-sustaining green meadow in just a couple of years.
The story of Hardas really shows us that local government isn't something that just happens to people. It's a process that happens with them. It's a space for everyone to participate. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. If you were there, in that meeting, what problem would you bring up? What question would you ask?